to another edition of Hot Topics right here on pubsportsradio.com. He's Jeff Nadeau. I'm Donnie Seema, and we're talking MLB. Jeff, still seems like a long way off, July 4th, but now we have some terms on the table for a possible return around the 4th of July with an 82-game season. But there's a lot of bullet points here, Jeff, that still have to get approved before we head down that road.
Yeah, and the most important one is money, which you and I talked about yesterday, Donnie. I mean, it was pretty much a standard point that the owners would be fine with the proposal. The players are the ones that are going to have issues with it. I mean, you know, and I think it's important to understand, like, we're watching them complain about making millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars. And it seems kind of, you know, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but you know, again, I mean, you're playing a game, you're putting your body at risk, you're worrying about getting sick. What is it all going to look like? And you know, Donnie, from what I understand, they've already taken somewhat of a pay cut as it is. So, you know, obviously, gate revenue is going to be down, all that kind of stuff. So, you know, they have to figure out a way to make it up. And yeah. Am I confident that there's a season? No, because money is the great equalizer a lot of the time. I don't think it's going to be incredibly difficult to get the season started. It's a question of when will the MLB players say, well, we're good with it? Because we've talked about it. You know, if you're a Mike Trout or a Bryce Harper, what the hell do you want to play for? I mean, you're not worried about money. I mean, at least at this point, you can go with 6 months not worrying about it. You don't have to get sick. They both have, I think, young children, so they can stay home, play with their kids, and everything's fine. It's really going to affect a low-level player that, you know, maybe is on the bench or something like that.
Yeah, let's just say the season gets wiped out, because we'll go over some of the bullet points that they're actually looking at to continue the season. But you're right. When you look at Mike Trout and Bryce Harper, they have money banked. But also, let's not forget, if there's no baseball season, Jeff, you know what they do to the CBA? They tear it up and go, hey, Mike, remember when you signed that $35 million a year? It's now $25. If you're $1 million player, that's now $500,000. It's money you can't get back because, yes, they are guaranteed contracts, but they're guaranteed as if baseball progresses as it normally does. If you wipe out like $8 or $9 billion in revenue that the owners get to pay you, that's going to come out of the players' pocket. So I understand their stances. It's not safe. Well, then don't come crying next year when you finally get a vaccine. They say, well, hey, remember, you're going to make $8 million. You're going to make $3.5 million this year.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's got to come to a head and agree on something. But yeah, I mean, that's a great point by you, and that's something that needs to be talked about. But I don't know. I think, you know, some of the stuff that they discussed, you know, I've been in agreement with it for a while. I think you should have had a universal designated hitter a long time ago. I don't know what we're waiting on. It's the only sport that we have that has different rules for different leagues. It's very odd. An 82-game season. I mean, look, I'm always for more baseball, but I got to tell you, 82 games sounds pretty damn good. I mean, even if you had, let's say, 20 more games, 102-game season, I'm good with that. Like, we don't need 182 games or whatever, 162 games. It's just too many. I mean, we don't need to start baseball in March. We just don't.
Yes, May that's why I was always a proponent of get it started in May when when the weather starts to get better. But you've been on this pedestal, Jeff, and I actually agree with you because some of the changes that are coming out of this pandemic, I think are going to be beneficial. Yeah. Because an 82 season game would be exciting to watch. A universal designated hitter who, like, I don't care about the baseball purists of the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Boy, it's fun when you have to take the pitcher out, and if you want to leave it, no. Put a real hitter up there so we can actually get a regular game going.
How long have we seen teams drag their feet with not bringing up AAA players and stuff like that? I mean, this is great because now you get those guys intertwined with the league. It's either sink or swim, folks. You come up, you hang with the big boys, and if you hang with the big boys and do well, it's almost like Donnie going to a poker game with Phil Ivey and Phil Hellmuth. It might not go well, but it might go well, and you might win all sorts of money off them. So you might sink, you might swim, but you're going to learn something. And that's something where, you know, you guys like Dante Bichette and players like that, they come up, do their thing, and we're not hamstringed by these teams that don't want to throw prospects out there. The taxi squad's awesome. I mean, that's great. That's something I've been looking for and trying to understand what's going to be the case. You look at other sports. What's the case when a player gets – and it also throws in a level of interest in competition now where, you know, let's say, you know – I don't know, a Mike Trout gets injured or goes out for coronavirus for 14 days. How does a team approach that? But it's going to be next man up, and that's going to be interesting to watch. I think it's cool that they've done that. Obviously, we don't have to worry about the league getting shut down if one or two players get it. I'm all for the rules. I think this is perfect. I said when we talked about this weeks ago, I thought this was the best idea as far as staying at home, playing in your home stadiums. There's no reason to go to Florida or Arizona. You don't need to. Just play geographically, move it around where everybody doesn't have to travel as much. We don't have to have a Philadelphia going out to San Diego or a Seattle going to New York. We don't need that stuff. Set it up geographically where teams play each other. It's a perfect situation. I got to tell you, Donnie, I wouldn't care if this was a normal occurrence. It probably won't be, but I wouldn't care if it was. These are great rules.
No, it is, because it's all about the gate. That's why baseball has so many games. Don't let them fool you by like, oh, it's about keeping the records intact. No, if the Major League Baseball owners, Jeff, could get away with it, they'd have 240 days of actual baseball in order to do it. But taking a look at some other things they have, spring training 2.0 would open up in June, which would probably be a couple weeks to get ready. We already talked about the universal designated hitter. Also, the use of home stadiums. This is the key that I like to read here, Jeff, because then you know who's real and who's fake. Because if you're coming into the Major League Baseball season, which two cities should be electric with their baseball team, Jeff? New York Yankees, center of the epicenter of what's going on with the pandemic. And then if you take a look at the West Coast, Jeff, in Carolina, they're playing a real time. Oh, we're not going to reopen anything. Tell those Dodgers and Dodger fans and say, hey, we can't play baseball here in Los Angeles and lose Mookie Betts, and he'll be a free agent without ever stepping foot to play for the Dodgers. We'll see how those governments react when the rubber meets the road, so to speak, and they're all their own governors, local government. Oh, Yankees can't play this year. We'll see how long that lasts.
Exactly. And look, I'm no salary, I'm no payroll whiz. I mean, some of this stuff is tough to understand and tough to read, but I mean, you read some of the stuff down. I mean, there could be a situation where players could be guaranteed more money in a 50-50 revenue split. I mean, how do we make that happen? How do we make this stuff happen where, and I'll ask you, because you're a little bit more versed in this.
Yeah.
What's it going to take? What does this need to happen for this to work?
I think what needs to happen is, and I think the whole play is, Jeff, because you know as well as I do, everything is a negotiation, right? They float things out to the media to see how it's going to go back and forth. They'll float a number to see how mad the other side will actually get in this. It's all about the safety of the Major League Baseball players is what you're going to hear in the paramount. But that's not really what it is, Jeff. You know what it comes down to. It's money. It's what are we going to lose? Because when you see Scott Boras leading the charge, and what's he saying, Jeff? This isn't fair. We already negotiated a collective. You idiot. This is not a normal baseball season where you have 81 home gates and all that ad revenue that's going to go into your payroll. Those are going to be gone. What it's going to take is when the doomsday scenarios come up, Jeff, because who's the richest man in the room? It's not the players. It's the owners. If the owners say, well, hey, look, it's not even worth coming back, the players are the ones that get hurt in all of this because they don't have that bankroll. They don't have 16 other, employment opportunities that they can go out and get. The owners are going to win, but I actually think the owners are going to be fair because they want to see baseball get back because it would be catastrophic to lose all of that money for an entire season, Jeff.
Right, and it's interesting, all that kumbaya attitude that we're going to be harmonious, we're going to get the season back, everybody's going to be happy. And what do we have? We have two groups fighting over money, which is pretty normal. Donnie, what do you think ultimately happens here?
You know what? I'm at the point where I know you. If you don't follow us on Twitter, like me and Jeff just shoot shots left and right here.
Yeah,
it went from honestly for me, Jeff, in the same boat as you. 3 weeks ago, let's all get a plan together. Even though UFC went off really, really well, you're starting to see the layers peeled back. Where just the asinine scenarios of like, what happens if my coach is 64? Can he like if we're thinking about that, because you know as well as I do, Jeff, we're not going to have 1,000 baseball players come back and nobody test positive for COVID or do anything about that. I'm under the assumption that when they come back, somebody's going to test it, and I don't want to get my own. To leave it short, I do think sports are coming back, but I got to tell you, like 30 days, I'm not so sure of it because they'll go to spring training, Jeff, and one assistant coach's wife will get it in Tampa, Florida during spring training, and we got to shut it down. I don't know, man. I'm pretty flummoxed. I was really excited a couple weeks ago for the return. I think it's going to come, but I'm just waiting for the doomsday,
Yeah, I mean, look, we also have to realize, I mean, if you want to do like a 2.5 week spring training and you want to, your hope was to start July 4th. I mean, you better get going here with these decisions because you basically have a month to figure it out. I mean, it's May 12th. I mean, you got to start getting going here. You got to start getting going with the testing, finding all that. And, I don't know. It's close. I mean, Tuesday's proposal obviously was the first step, but I don't know. I got to look more into like the money. I just know all I hear is money, and I think, well, if you're going to pay them less money, they ain't going to play.
No, because they're going to have to accept it, because what other choice do they have? I mean, yes, they can say, hey, I just had a baby. I don't want to risk and come back to work. I understand that. But these are the same players and the same agents that say, well, how come we were getting paid $35 million 2 years ago and now we're down to $25 million? And I mean, contracts are flying off. Like, we used to think like $100 million baseball contract was amazing. Now they're getting 200 and 300 million. And in a couple of years, they say, well, the owners are going to point back and be like, we didn't make a dime and lost money this season.
Remember,
that has to be made back.
I remember when A-Rod got $250 million.
Yes.
I thought it was one of the most unbelievable things I'd ever heard.
Mm-hmm.
I said, "Wow, this guy got $25 million a year
to play baseball for 10 years." Yes.
Yeah. Now it's like, those are kind of normalities at this point. But yeah, it's a fascinating thing to talk about. I will say though, and I'm sure you agree here, the rules I love. Yes. I love the idea of all these rules. Yes. I'm hoping they can figure it out. And
expanded playoffs too, Jeff, from 10 to 14 teams. Yeah. Keep more teams in it later. I love it. Yes.
Good point. Ultimately, I think it's either going to be, look, you either have a season and get what you can, or you don't have a season and you get, Ugats, as they say.
No, it's exactly right. We're keeping you updated right here on Hot Topics with Pub Sports Radio, talking Major League Baseball. Will it come back? Boy, I hope we can come back. But the UFC, again, putting on some fights this week. We'll see where it all goes. Yeah, go ahead.
Real quick before we go. We've talked about this before. We've talked ad nauseum. When's the season start to you? When are we playing baseball here?
I'm going to say July 4th. I'm going to say they're going to force them back on the field for July 4th. Yes, I'm going with it. I'm going with the hard date, Jeff.
I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to say I think they play hardball here. I don't think they come to an agreement. I've accepted. I don't think we see sports till, at least the ones we want, baseball, basketball, and hockey until next year. I think football is the first sport we see. And I mean, now we see with that, you see Mark Emmert come out and say that if students aren't around, we're not having football. So it's a fucking world-turning thing, Donnie.
It exactly is. So keep in touch. We'll be back again tomorrow with another Hot Topic. He's Jeff Nadeau. I'm Donnie Seymour. Have a good day.